Revolt, protest, fight, oppose, resist. These 5 words of power are used to define the Rabble, the Brujah, or do they actually? I am your Lord and Saviour, and this is the Bloody Guide to Vampire Roleplay. You probably noticed that I am saying Brujah and not Brujah, which is purely because to call them Brujah is wrong. If you open up page 136 of the original Vampire the Masquerade core book, you will find a Tim Bradstreet classic dominating the full page. At the bottom of said piece is the text that reads Brujah, indicating that I'm very much indeed pronouncing the clan correctly, which you can hear in Vampire the Masquerade Redemption, which came before Bloodlines. You'll also notice that I spelt the word differently. The clan is spelled Brujah with a H, not Brujah without a H. Brujah is a Spanish word meaning witch or sorceress, but Brujah isn't, so pronouncing Brujah as Brujah is phonetically incorrect. But as I'm just some guy on YouTube and not a native Spanish speaker, you will find a native Spanish speaker working at World of Darkness and Paradox Interactive explaining the correct way to say Brujah in a link in the description below. If you don't like it, stay mad and cope, for I am the law. The Brujah are vampires descended from the antediluvian Elise, though some would argue a different vampire claimed that mantle. You see, most Brujah that gave a shit would say that their founding member was an individual known as Troil. Elise was said to be a cold and emotionless soul who would embrace a more fiery soul, Troil, who would eat their sire's soul and assume the rank of antediluvian and spokesperson for the clan. Alongside the Toreador antediluvian Arakel, Troil helped form the Road of Humanity and would lead that infamous charge into Carthage, whose downfall would forever serve as the salt in the pustulating wound in the Brujah clan, with a whole death cult enslaving the masses in between. However, the intended vision would inspire the vast majority of the clan's aims as the de facto rulers of what would become the Anarch movement, establishing a status quo between the human race and vampires, crushing oppression in all their forms. Wherever there is a struggle, an establishment to tear down, or a pig in uniform to beat back, you will find Brujah inspiring the people. They are the people's clan, fighting for what they believe is right. More often than not, they thrive and embrace those who thrive in counterculture or revolution, those who don't conform to society's rules but demand a society for all. Brujah are not interested in sheep. They think and act the same way, and safety in numbers can only do so much. If you do not put yourself on the line to make life better not just for you, but for those who come after, what are you doing with your own life? Go out there and fuck shit up for the people! That distinction is very important because most define the Brujah's outbursts as a product of their clan weakness, and their bane as unbridled rage, which is telling, given the player's guide has their stupid alternate bane is all about violence. The flaws of the clan derive from their own founder's flaws, which in the case of Troil, whose overly passionate nature, for lack of a better phrase, got the better of him. Alternatively, Elise was cursed with the inverse of her nature, out of spite, but debating the origin of the clan's weakness is pure semantics at this point. The weakness of the Brujah is passion, not rage, which in vampires manifests in the form of frenzy, be it rage or fear, or a great desire to chow down. In the mortal shell, passion comes in many forms, and the blend of human emotions and vampiric needs is a horrible mix, but passion dictates a purpose for whatever the associated emotion is, be it true love, the joys of a special interest or obsession, or a great sense of injustice that needs to be wrong. Passion is the catalyst to obtain these desires, to make what is right within your world. With the Brujah, these emotions and needs are amplified tenfold. Mechanically, this helps the player feel the plights of the Brujah to hype up their emotions in the game, as not everyone who steps into the shoes feels so passionate about these fiends, or is a Molotov-throwing anarchist with a mohawk. Whilst it is all fine and dandy tearing down the establishment, if you don't have the means to bring it back up again with something better, then all that violence and rioting was senseless, and the Brujah have plenty of that. Out of all the clans, they have the most significant influence on mortal academia, which stems from their past as aspiring philosopher kings. These more scholarly Brujah have been dubbed Hellenes, the most influential of whom are some of the elders of the clan who continue to exert efforts in drawing potential embraces from this pool. Of course, it is a losing fight. It is a dated practice, a cold era long gone, found pretty much only within the Camarilla. Out within the old, in with the new. The Brujah as a whole loathe this line of thinking, as it often goes hand in hand with the political squabbling of their enemies in the tower. The Brujah rule in the streets, manipulating from within the hordes of angry voices. They may be the clan of the people, but they are still vampires that rely on the blood-infused powers to ultimately get their way. It is also important to mention that it is not uncommon for a Brujah to embrace any random schmuck and fuck off and let them work everything out for themselves, which is a very common practice within the clan, but there is a lot in that. This may seem counterintuitive, as you would want to bolster your descendants to join the cause, but why would revolutionaries groom the ones they want to help break free? Now, you could argue a lot of reasons for this case, with many answers associating freedom fighters with terrorists and blind cultists, but without the taint of a sire or informal mentor, the child have no basis or bias in their upbringing, taking their kindred experiences at face value, experiencing the corruption of the world of darkness as it happens to them and around them. They can be preached about how something is corrupt and messed up, but if Timmy the accountant who was quite happy with the world doesn't feel it, then that heated passion is misdirected and ultimately wasted. Sure, someone of the Camarilla may swoop them up and try and groom them into a more tolerable member of kindred society, but the learned clan cannot be contained and the oppressed child will snap, hopefully with one of those corrupt fucks in the process. Said folks in the kindred world are often the Ventru, who are probably their only real competitor when it comes to fingering the mortal pie, but the thing that makes these two clans different is their interactions. The Ventru seek out institutions, companies, and ways to profit off mortal society beneath them. The Brujah focus on the individual. They may not focus on a powerful political candidate, which is peak Ventru behavior, but the Brujah probably know all the people the politicians shat on to use as a means to overthrow the political campaign that could be used against the Ventru. The stereotypical DIY approach to the heads of the movement lent itself to the choice of disciplines, or is it the other way round? Presence can aid in inspiring fear and awe in spades, perfect for drumming up emotional feelings during important speeches and rants, but also to bestow some of that anger upon the ears of all that will listen. More philosophical Brujah could get away using presence in a rant or any form of debate, perfect for creating or making new common enemies. Potence works wonders for those moments when you want to punch first and ask questions later, which is probably going to be most of the time knowing the template well. Most importantly, it is a tool. All the disciplines are, but exercising that too much will make the Brujah stand out, and if people start noticing you are a superhero in leather, they may not only fear you, but turn blindly to you for help, forgetting their individuality, having it replaced by disillusioned fanaticism. On a simpler level, potence is pretty effective to yeet a brick at a cop or a cop at a brick wall as hard as vampirically possible. Celerity also has many uses for the frontline Brujah. They can guarantee getting in the first punch and escape the riots they started. Regardless of the type of Brujah you are, it can be used to hunt or pick off vessels on the street, brutally sucking them off and or disposing of the evidence before anyone can blink, disappearing into the night once more. With this wide range of functions, mostly with the discipline usage, there are many ways you could bend predator types to fit your kindred concepts, but here is what I would suggest. The alley cat fits into most Brujah concepts, as you can't be picky at a ride or clubbing someone's face in. That, and many of them don't care about the sort of food they eat. Food is food after all, though I imagine one would prefer to fiery blood of rebels than a fat cat with bloated pockets. Maybe every so once and often to piss off that one Ventru, but not too often, I think. Those that are trying to find their feet, or particularly young, may not want to take advantage of strangers, but find it safe to do so with trusting family members via the cleaver predator type, or the safety of a trusting immortal friend with the consensualist. For a vampiric twist on this, Bloodleech may work, as you may find taking advantage of mortals, the ones you deem to be your equals, to be a step too far. Really guilt-ridden Brujah could feed on the non-consenting animals via the farmer predator type. Osiris would only be common if you attempted to establish a modernized Carthage or some other new faith religion to forward your revolutionary motives. On a smaller scale, Hellene Brujah may focus on feeding on those from a similar cliques via the Scene Queen. There are many lore sheets you can assign to your character, but here are some of the ones I think fit well with tonight's clan. If you want to associate your character with some of the big cheeses within the Anarchs of 5th edition, try putting some dots into Theo Bell and Rudy from the core book, and Agatha Sterek and Salvador Garcia from the Anarch book. Also from the Anarch book, we have the actual Anarch Revolt lore sheet, as they were the poster child for the whole thing. The more academic-leaning Brujah may want to consider the Ruins of Carthage lore sheet from Anarch 2. Going back to the core book, the Bahari now appears to be more Anarch-aligned rather than a faction in of itself. That is also a choice you may want to consider, though this isn't a lore sheet limited to the Brujah, of course. Descendant of Tyler and Descendant of Mullane are from Anarch and Chicago Folios, respectively. If it wasn't apparent, these are Brujah characters, both with lots of weight and importance to the overall plot of Vampire the Masquerade, particularly Tyler for the Anarchs. Unlike Tyler, Mullane has two lore sheets connected to him, the other being Mullane's in Children of the Blood, if you want the connection to the Child of Troy to be more cultic in nature. To that end, any cult-related lore sheet would be great for reinventing the Carthage death cult vibe, but with a brand new 5th edition twist. Both Mullane and Tyler have a lot of sway in Chicago, and many of the lore sheets do apply to Chicago-aligned Brujah, while some are more general and combat-focused, like Lupine Expert. Some of the Chicago-based ones from my previous Bloody Guide episode apply here too, but one from Chicago by Night that is more fitting for the Brujah is Kindred Iconography, as V5 has a small focus on vampires using code to highlight locations and meanings, which would be adopted easily by the Brujah. To return to the core book once more, the Brujah are in the interesting position to benefit from both the low and high clan lore sheets, just not at the same time, of course. Finally, the circulatory system has your kindred become a little more involved with the movement of the people, albeit for less humane reasons. Unless, of course, your Brujah is aware how messed up things are and is trying to make things better. Or you could just frame it in the sense that it's not the circulatory system, it would be something far worse. There are many ways one can build a character. Some of them are wrong, but most of them are right. Ultimately, it should be the narrative that drives the stats, powers and mechanics that work with and against them. These are just my takes, and mine alone. How would you build a character belonging to this vampire clan? What wouldn't you do? What would you add to shake things up and make the concept just a little spicy? Let me know in the comments below. To be kept updated, follow the ONLY VtM Instagram and Blue Sky pages to find out when we upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.